Awesome. So I think it is around 6:05, and we have a lot of participants as well. So
Sure.
we'll start the webinar right away. So awesome. I'll start with an introduction. So before us is Ameve, who is the founder of Kapiva. And for those of you who don't know Kapiva, Kapiva is one of the original D2C brands. It started around 5 years ago in the wellness space, and they started doing their D2C when D2C was not even a term, when it was not even cool to do it. And that is why now I think they are one of the market leaders in the wellness slash edibles space. So it would be great if maybe you could also talk a few lines about yourself.
Absolutely. So a little bit about myself. So actually, what you said is actually incorrect. So we technically started Kapiva 5 years ago, yes. But the business we started is very different from the business you see today, right?
Okay.
But fair enough, 3.5 years, 4 years is where we started the current business. You're right. When we started D2C, there was no benchmark. People turned around and said, why are you selling online? What is there to do? What's the market? It's a loss leader.
Yeah.
But I think very quickly people kind of started figuring out that it is a very important channel. So we started Kapiva, I think, from a very simple point of view. So my background is that I come from a very old kind of Ayurvedic heritage, right? Okay. So my family has been involved in Ayurveda for 120 years, right? And I saw a very large opportunity, right? And the opportunity was very simple, that Ayurveda today is primarily consumed by 40 plus, right? But when you talk to a below 40 consumer, you find that they are very pro Ayurveda, right? That they have used Ayurveda at some point in their life, probably, and they've had a positive experience, right? Only about 10 to 15% of the people that I spoke to below 40 had any negative experience for Ayurveda. 85 to 90 were extremely positive, right? But there was no company catering to them, right? The big problems that I saw, right? Why these guys were not consuming Ayurveda. A was discoverability. What do I take, right? And B was faith and visibility on output, right? If I take this, what is the output I'll get and when, right? There was like the older companies, the mindset was, "ठीक है, ये product ले लो, जो होगा वो होगा," right? There's no expect X in this month. There's no clinical validation, etc.
Yeah.
So we saw a huge opportunity that how do we make Ayurveda relevant again for the next generation in India? So in a way, reinvent it and create the future of Ayurveda. And what is that going to look like, right? That was the big question that we had. Initially, when we started, the big gap we saw, right, is that Ayurveda is not exactly a problem, a product, right? That's how allopathy works. And that's where Ayurveda has moved. In reality, Ayurveda requires a holistic solution. So the first iteration of the business actually was setting up physical clinics.
Oh, okay.
So we actually set up 5 clinics, physical clinics, with the clinic was supposed to be the center of gravity, where the customer comes, talks to nutritionist, talk to doctor, this, that, right? Very quickly we realized that boss, ये scale करना बहुत मुश्किल है, right?
Yeah.
We opened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, और उसमें ही मैंने we took like 1.5 years, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that paths तो कभी बनने वाले नहीं है, right? We'll be old by the time we make 500. And then we kind of saw the opportunity online, the ability to deliver that same, maybe not the same, but very close to that level of kind of service online, right? So everything from a diet plan to a doctor consultation to lifestyle diet advice to even the right product recommendation, right? So let's say, for example, you have a skin problem, right? Let's say you have acne problem, right? We have a product that serves probably 60% to 70% of acne consumers, right? But your acne problem could be based on multiple things. Could be based on PCOS, right? Could be based on hormonal is a thing. Could also be based on exterior issues, right? So unless you actually talk to the customer and get them to give you some input, the chances of solving the problem is only 60 to 70%, right? Which is not bad, but not fantastic. But Ayurveda actually has a detailed way of understanding the problem from its root and solving that, which nobody had actually brought out properly, right? That was the ambition here, to actually bring out the real Ayurveda for younger generation and solve the biggest problems of discoverability and trackability.
So if you think about these broad problems which you were seeing from customers coming in clinics, right, like acne and hair fall, and you know that solving them is not very simple. You need a complete consultation, you need a diet plan, you need maybe several products, and you need people to follow what you have given as well. Sure. But you are a small startup, right? You can't do all of this. Like, so how did you kind of take the first step? How did you decide when you're first of all, how did you decide to first go online, right? Why did you pick that as a channel? And then out of all of these things which are needed to solve that problem from the root, right? How did you decide to kind of take them online?
So it's quite straightforward. Okay. So first of all, you see what you can do. That's the place to start, right? As a startup, when you start on day one, resources are limited, right? And you have to kind of choose very carefully where your ROI will be the most, right? So we realized on day one, the best thing to build, right, which will actually give us the best ROI and achieve is two things. A is content, right? Create a lot of content across PDP, across website, across A plus content everywhere to ensure that the consumer is actually getting a detailed understanding of what they're consuming, what's in it, how it works, etc. And second was CRM, right? Use emailers, use communication, etc. to kind of give them that guided journey, right? So that was step one. It was the easiest to execute, had the highest impact, right? I think that ROI calculation as an entrepreneur you have to do on a literally hourly basis, right? Because saying no is more difficult, is the most important thing, if you ask me, right? कि boss ये नहीं करना है, very clearly. ये करना है तो बहुत ही आसान है, but ये नहीं करना है is what's more important, right?
Yeah.
So I think we took a very clear point of view कि X, Y, Z is all great, but we cannot do it today. It's pointless. Let's focus on what we can do.
Yeah.
So content creation became something we really spent a lot of time on. Product development became a core strength on day one, right? Because the idea was how do you, end of the day, we look at ourselves as a healthcare brand, right? We're looking to solve health issues. So health issues may the core of the product, right? I think a lot of startups have the marketing mentality, right? And that works very well for certain things, right? But for healthcare that does not work, right? So we were very clear from day one कि was product में दम होनी चाहिए, right? And retention is what is going to kind of make us go forward. And we do have like best in class 65% kind of retention across the platform, right?
Awesome. Okay.
So I think these two things are the two things we prioritize, because these two things we realized rather than doing 20 things, जो करना ही है, let's do it fantastically well. I think over a period of time we kept adding, right? So then we added doctor consultation. Now we kind of added an app-led kind of journey. Then we added telehealth. Then we kept on adding capability to better deliver the promise and better deliver this to the customer. But it started incrementally. There are some startups, by the way, that nowadays the story badal gayi hai. Day one mein they raise $20 million and go ahead. Our journey was not like that.
Achha, awesome. So basically, you made a great product. You drove demand through content, and you focused on retention so that people started coming back and they might refer more people. But I wanted to focus on that on that aspect as well. Initially, how did you drive demand? Were you only focused on content to drive demand, or like what all did you really do? What really worked for you in the initial days to get people to this unknown brand, right?
So I think two things, right? I think one of the big things that helped us initially was actually, I cannot deny it, is Amazon, right?
Okay.
So I think Amazon is where the customer is, end of the day, right? Yeah. So that is where half the battle is won, right? So customer already है वहाँ पे, आपका काम है to create a strong enough value proposition to convert them, right? A lot of people, start with D2C, and I think there's a logic to that as well. But for us, our initial fighting ground was Amazon, right? And the reason was that we found it's the best way to actually validate what you're saying, right? Customer already hai, uska paisa de raha nahi mujhe. I have a value proposition that I'm creating through everything from what my product is called, to the picture, to the A+, to XYZ, right? Am I able to create a strong enough value proposition that when I'm paying for an ad and someone is searching for hair fall, they actually click on me and then convert, right? Yeah. So I think we focused a lot on actually building that Amazon piece initially. And once we had a lot of confidence in the value proposition and communication, that's when we actually started the D2C funnels in a big way, right? Tab clear ho gaya ki theek hai, people who are searching for hair fall on Amazon, we are able to convert them. But that means what we are selling, value proposition is good. Okay. And there's a growing organic business coming on Amazon. That means they're coming back, right? Got it. So then, those products, we started then building bigger and bigger D2C funnels. Right. Again, I think D2C marketing, I think one thing we're very clear from day one, right? Which I also feel is like a big learning for today, is that it's not any different from regular marketing, right? I think having a very, very strong marketing mindset, who's the customer, what is the value proposition, how do you want to communicate to them? I think a lot of people, look at it very technically, right? That it's a technical thing. How do I kind of tweak this, tweak that?
Okay.
But the core of it is still marketing 101, right? Getting that value proposition right. So
Awesome.
I think that was the two big things we got to acquire people on day one.
Got it. I had a question about Amazon and also about the value proposition, right? On Amazon, if you look today for people selling solutions for acne or hair fall or for any wellness category, right? There are like 50 to 100 solutions at least, right?
Sure.
And there is a lot of noise in all of these categories, all kinds of categories.
Sure.
So how does someone who is like, even when you are launching new categories, right? How do you kind of cut through that noise and really find out what is your positioning? How are you kind of different from all those others in the market?
So basically, the idea is very straightforward, right? That you want to be in a position, right, where you are actually thinking very much consumer first. कि consumer जो search कर रहा है क्या क्या देख रहा है, right? End of the day, I think consumer is searching and those search terms that are available to everyone, right?
Yes.
So maybe on day one, you don't try to win hair fall, right? You look for a more niche term, right? And you win that. And you optimize for that, right? So you need to pick your battles. It's actually like, you're going into a war and you have to win multiple battles to win the war, right? So you subdivide your category into multiple kind of keywords, and then you win that sub keyword. End of the day, Amazon may to win. The basic thing is that you need to organically rank, right? Today, we're proud to say we have 35 bestsellers on Amazon, right? And that is where you will make money. Because even if you're number 8, just to stay at number 8, you have to keep spending. You'll never make any money, right? So the idea is that there has to be certain keywords where you're the best seller, right? And you have to create thought process of how do I get there. If tomorrow I want to win moisturizer, obviously मैं क्या भी कर लूँ मैं नहीं जीत पाऊँगा, right? If I want to win shampoo, I can never win. But if I want to win Ayurvedic shampoo for hair fall, then maybe I can, right? So I think those are the pick your battles very smartly. Figure out where you actually have opportunity to win. And when you win the smaller battle, then think about the larger one.
Awesome. Got it. The other thing which you said was, once you win a battle on Amazon, right, and once you start getting demand from there, then you set up a D2C funnel and start shifting that audience to D2C. So I wanted to understand, first of all, why.
Not shifting to D2C.
Yeah.
It's more validating the value proposition, right, on Amazon, because see, on D2C, there are multiple variables, right? I could be just marketing to the wrong person, right? And then I feel my communication is wrong, right? The beauty of Amazon is that at least the audience is relevant with high intent. Somebody who's searching for a keyword has high intent and is come to buy. So the first thing you get right is that what is my value proposition that I'm selling and is it working or not? That's what Amazon will tell you like this, right? अगर नहीं बिक रहा है तो आपका product ही गलत है, right? Move on. So I think once that is established, that's when I have confidence कि okay, now I need to figure out, I've understood my value proposition and communication strategy. So now the only variables left on D2C are who do I target, how do I target them, when do I target them, what communication, like all of that, right? So it's basically, again, breaking our problem into pieces, right? I can solve one piece of it on Amazon in isolation and take that learning and apply it to D2C, where there's then limited problems to solve on D2C. If I start on day one in D2C, there's 20 problems to solve and very difficult to test what's working, what's not working. That's at least the way we think about it.
Okay, got it. But once you have validated the problem which you are solving and the user and the communication through Amazon, then how do you set up a D2C funnel basically after that?
So I can't share everything because then I was like, but the high level point of view, honestly, Aniket, is ki once we validated, right, the product is working, retention is working, right, all of that is fine. Then the idea is to replicate that communication to the relevant audience, utilizing, a Facebook, etc. Right?
Yeah.
I think there's multiple ways to drive traffic. Right? There's everything from influencer to Facebook to even YouTube to content to blah 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 blah. Right? You need to figure out where your audience is. Go where your audience is. Right? In a way, Amazon's job is to bring in your audience to you. On D2C, you need to figure out where your relevant audience is sitting. Right? Once you figure that out, then the basic idea is that, so then you need to look at every part of the funnel again, right? पहले आपने audience figure out कर लिया, right? Amazon helps you figure out a value proposition. Yeah. Then assuming that you have a decent CPM, CTR, etc., you've actually at a decent cost got a person on your PDP. Then you need to start worrying about PDP conversion, right? And then break that out into PDP checkout to checkout to payment, and even like something as small as payment success, right? Plays a large role in your overall ROAS conversion CAC. Then you break it up into multiple pieces and optimize each piece individually. With D2C, there's so many moving parts that if you don't isolate and solve one at a time, you'll end up doing nothing, right? So I think benchmarking is very important. So you know what kind of conversion. So one high level benchmark is conversion, right? But what is conversion going to tell you? It's going to tell you that you are either better or worse. Now, what are you better and what are you worse in, right? Depends on, is it checkout, is it payment, is it PDP, is it, where are people dropping off, right? So I think you need to look at each part of the funnel and kind of figure out where your weakness is and try to fix your weakness and maximize the strength.
Awesome, got it. I had one question about retention, which you mentioned earlier, that your product was so good that people started using it and talking about it to their friends and so on, and that led to retention as well. But I had a question that for a product for hair fall, right, it requires some discipline from, or for a diet product, right, for a weight loss product, it requires some discipline from their side also to follow a particular regimen which you are suggesting, right? Only then they will see results. So do you see enough users having that discipline and following that and being able to get results from the product actually, or how do you kind of enable them to do that in the end?
So you know, when we say product, we don't necessarily mean only the physical product, right? So what I'm selling is a solution, right? So weight loss, for example, product by itself helps to some extent to curb hunger pangs, right? But you need other interventions as well, right? So that's where content plays a large role, right? And CRM plays a large role, right? That it was not only providing you a product, but also providing you, diet, lifestyle tips, etc. Right? When we started, it was very, very basic, but now that's getting more and more sophisticated. You know, with doctor consultation and the app coming in and using more and more kind of technology to deliver it in a better and better way, right? So first of all, I want to say that product doesn't necessarily mean product itself. Product means what you're delivering as a solution to the consumer, right? So hair, for example, 90% of hair, the problem is nutrition, right? Log lagate physically only 10%, right? So some scalp moisturization, etc., can lead to issues, but 90% of problem when your body consumes any food, right? Hair is the last priority for the body, right? That means that everything will get nourishment before your hair, and very often everything from graying to hair fall is very much dependent on what kind of nutrition you're eating. If you go to like a hair doctor, the first thing the doctor will say is go get a blood test, see kahan pe aapka deficiency hai, aur wo aap deficiency low, right? So that's what we're doing through Ayurveda. We're giving you an overall nutrition product that is actually making sure that your hair is getting the nutrition it needs, not getting deprioritized. So there is a lot of people whose hair fall will get followed by that, right? Or will slow down at least by that. But again, a lot of other things also depend, right? So if you're riding a bike in heavy pollution every day, that will also cause a hair fall, right? So there are lifestyle changes you need to make. So that's where the content piece comes in, right? So that's why what I was saying, the holistic approach is very important, right? So it's about the very, very important is giving your customer the outcome they are looking for, right? And in healthcare, so it's do or die, right? अगर आपने outcome नहीं दिया तो आप दुनिया के सबसे खराब person हो, और आपने outcome दे दिया, then you are fantastic, right? There's no in between, right? So in healthcare in particular, the place we play in, I think stakes are high, right? And that's why we always kind of designed a product very much consumer first and very much to make sure there's measurable outcome, right? I think also communication around adherence and expectations is very important, right? So some of our products take 2 months to work. So we say that upfront. It's on my PDP, okay, right? कि बहुत 2 महीने लगते हैं, मैं आपको अभी बोल रहा हूँ. आप ready नहीं हो तो मत लो, So it's literally that honesty and expectation setting also plays a large role.
Acha, got it. Interesting. So basically, to sum it up, there are a lot of things, but there is content overall, and content plus the CRM plus having an actual physical product that works all of these things in tandem lead to you consistently delivering the result, and that is what leads to retention in the end.
And see, and that's what platform like D2C are for, right? आपको सिर्फ product बेचना है, तो आप Amazon पे बेचो. What's the point of having a D2C platform, right? There has to be a reason to believe, a reason to exist for D2C. Reason to exist can't be that there's one more channel to buy, right? Reason to exist needs to be something larger that you're delivering to the customer, right? Saying things like, oh, I have consumer data, that's your benefit. What's the consumer benefit, right? So I think one hard thought process is key. What is the website offering to the consumer, right? So for us, it's what I just mentioned.
Oh, awesome. This is super interesting. Okay. I also like when we started 2 years back, I think you were one of the earliest adopters of LimeChat, and you really took a bet on WhatsApp much earlier than anybody else again. So I wanted to understand, like, why did you take a bet on WhatsApp so early? What potential do you see overall in WhatsApp, and how do you kind of use it today?
See, I think number one, what I said earlier, you have to go where your customers are. People on WhatsApp, right? Now, if I am saying that I am going to get people to start using something else because I want them to, it's not going to happen, right? Number one. Number two, WhatsApp has become a fantastic information delivery mechanism, right? And like I said, content is at our core, right? So today, the biggest challenges that I was facing, which I would give me sleepless nights, which is why now app is such a big thing, is that, boss, mera email ko open rate 25% hai, right? Mera SMS ko open rate 15-20% hai, right? So sab mila jula ke my unique customer reach post purchase is only 35%, right? So 65% of my consumers are not even getting the content that I want to give them, right? So for me, that was something that would give me sleepless nights, right? Where I'm not being able to deliver what I want to deliver properly because rok par hi nahi rahe, right? So I was constantly on the lookout for channels, right, where we could improve this, right? And then WhatsApp obviously was the big one, right, which was always in our mind. So when this kind of came up, right, and when you guys created your product, right, it was kind of something that we've been thinking about for a long time, meets execution, right? मेरे back of my mind था में था कि यार ये खुद बनाना पड़ेगा क्या, कैसे बनाएंगे ये तो बहुत headache है, right? I was thinking about that. The second I've heard has been built, I'm like, boss, thank God, that's awesome. So literally, it was almost like we were waiting for you in a way. So I think there was one big kind of driver there. I think second thing was that we were seeing the piece of conversational commerce was playing, right, more and more, where people don't have this one question, but they have a diverse set of questions. They actually, that's where telehealth was kind of coming up, right? Like we are seeing people had a lot of questions and clarifications, right? And people also more comfortable getting the information written down, right? And it's better for the company also not to have agents talking, right? So I think from that point of view also, it was a perfect fit. So yeah, I think it was kind of like a tick for us. And yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
Awesome, that's really great to hear. Cool. So basically, one is for you to engage your existing customers by sending out content, which is a core part of your retention. And the second is the ability to leverage this thing called conversational commerce. Basically, like instead of having human agents selling, you can do it automatically on WhatsApp, right? So for a brand looking to leverage, just start leveraging WhatsApp, right? There are a lot of ways that they can do it, right? At the marketing part itself, or putting it on their website to boost conversions, or to send out these outbound messages, or to send out engagement messages, right? So where do you think a brand should start, and how do you think it should move forward over time?
So I think that's very depends on brand to brand, depends what you're trying to achieve, right? So for us, content delivery was key. So both pre and post, right? That's what we used it for, right? That if you want, conversational commerce is basically content delivery, right? CRM is basically content delivery, right? So both post and pre-purchase, that was the key kind of use, right? I think, I've seen, for example, brands where it's doing like, I just noticed that HDFC, right, had a WhatsApp thing, and I literally like changed my credit card limits and, started, did FD and all kinds of crazy stuff through WhatsApp, right? So I think it really depends on what kind of product you have, what kind of channel you have. And I think, there's no, if you're thinking of one thing fits all, right? I think everybody needs to figure out how to use different channels and different things for the purpose that they have, right? And if that's not clear, then we need to spend more time figuring out what are we trying to actually deliver to the customer, right? What's our reason to be?
Mm. Awesome, awesome, got it. You had mentioned a very interesting thing before, that WhatsApp is no longer just a medium of communication, and in fact, it can actually be a commerce channel where a significant portion of your overall revenue starts coming through WhatsApp, right? So I wanted to ask you two things, right? First is like, what kind of results have you seen through WhatsApp? Do you have you started seeing significant revenue out of your overall D2C through WhatsApp? And the second is, what is the potential according to you? How much do you think it can go to, right?
Sure. So I think we are starting to see revenue, right? But that's not the key ambition yet, because I do feel that WhatsApp needs to put in that checkout process on WhatsApp to
Yeah.
make the process clean, right? I think it does work. A lot of people do want to buy now and then click on the link and go to the website.
Yeah.
But it's still in single digits, low single digit percentages, right? In terms of overall revenue. So I think from a revenue point of view, I think it can be huge, but I think it's already good, right? Even a few percentage is good because that's basically growth that I didn't have, right?
Yeah.
But I think it can be much larger. I think it can be its own e-commerce channel, right? If it builds that functionality properly, correct? I think already globally it has built that functionality, if I'm not wrong, right?
Right.
I think the second thing, which is indirect commerce in a way, right? So for example, we do almost about 40,000 consultations every month, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of our key kind of most high conversion channels, right? So WhatsApp has really enabled us to help people sign up for consultations very easily. You know, so it's enabling commerce today in a big way, right? Where so earlier, so today because of WhatsApp, we are always at 98% capacity. We can't add consultants fast enough, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to add doctors because WhatsApp is actually giving us so much traffic. So I think that's so it's aided. So not direct conversion, right? But on the route to conversion, it's been fantastic. So I think direct conversion, I have very, very high hopes, right? But I think it needs to be a little bit seamless, the journey, for that to happen. I think today, for like getting a link, clicking on the link, going to the page, slightly still not bad. I think still quite smooth. But I think people have really gotten used to very frictionless checkout.
Interesting, got it. So basically, like a lot of your buying is consultative. Your selling is consultative, right? But once the doctor has kind of created that intent, or any other marketing channel has created that intent, if that checkout process is there, right? A seamless checkout process is there, then it will become a commerce channel in itself, right? By the way, we have recently launched our checkout on chat, where you can complete the entire checkout journey.
Oh, nice.
On
awesome.
chat. So
awesome.
yeah, very excited
to look forward to enabling that. That's awesome. So I think we're doing tens of thousands of conversations now, right, with you guys on WhatsApp. But if we can start nudging conversion, that will be amazing.
Right. So instead of the first attempt would be to kind of convert the user, and the second is, if they drop off, then kind of take them to a consultation where like a telehealth expert can kind of talk to them. Awesome. I also wanted to ask another thing. So you talked initially about starting on Amazon, then starting a D2C channel as well. So when is the right time for a brand to first of all start their D2C channel as well, then start exploring other mediums like WhatsApp, and then finally like start a complete omni-channel kind of retail omni-channel commerce strategy?
See, difficult to say for other brands, but I can tell you for ourselves how we thought about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing we did Amazon, because Amazon was where I tested my hypothesis, right? I think, like I said, starting a D2C without having some confidence on value proposition is very difficult, because there's too many variables you're solving for them, right? You don't know what's going wrong, right? So the way we thought about it is that marketplace was number one, right? Then D2C slightly after, once you build that value proposition. I think omni-channel, as in like, by omni-channel, do you mean offline?
Yeah, offline as well, yes.
So I think offline, again, it really depends, right? I think offline should be done significantly later, because demand creation offline is very difficult, right? So once you've gotten enough velocity, right, where enough people know you, right, and then you feel that when a product rak diya, people will actually, it's a fulfillment channel in my head, right? Literally, until there was online, there was literally nobody knew an FMCG in India ever, because it's so expensive to build that demand, and like there's probably one or two exceptions, but there was the same guy selling FMCG from day one. Right? New brands are coming today because online gives you a chance to kind of actually reach out to the customer directly. right? I would say focus on online for the first few years for sure, until you build that consumer awareness. At least 20-30 million people should have heard of you, right? Maybe 10 million, chalo, right? But below that, and then you need to make sure you go offline where those 10 million consumers are, right? So let's say if Bombay is your number one city and zip code where you're being bought on D2C and Amazon, make sure your offline strategy kind of goes with that, right? Because end of the day, offline you can only do fulfillment. I think except for a few stores, demand creation offline is very difficult. When it comes to WhatsApp, I think WhatsApp makes sense from day one, right? I think it's a great way to kind of be in touch with the consumers. If there's a way to kind of use WhatsApp even without D2C, I would have done it, right? I think D2C becomes the requirement because I don't have the data. Right? But let's say if you're doing a dropship model and you have the data, I would still then send a WhatsApp message, like no question. So I think WhatsApp is a much better way to kind of keep that communication going, right? Than any other channel, right? Like it's data, right? Open rates on WhatsApp versus open rates on email. Right?
So you seem to be the biggest fan of WhatsApp after us.
I'm a fan of what works and data. Yeah. Works should work.
I have one last question from my end before we open it up to the questions from the attendees. So, please put your questions here on the Q&A right now. The final question that I had was that once you start building up your brand, right? How do you maintain a moat against all the other people who are trying to get in and trying to go after the same keywords and the same broad category in which you are, right? How do you stop kind of losing your customers to other brands in that sense?
Sure. So, Aniket, I feel that the definition of who you are, right? What you're trying to do, reason to be is your moat, right? So as a brand, our moats are a product, right? We put a lot of time, effort into product, right? To the point where we were doing such exciting things in Ayurveda. The R&D head of the largest Ayurveda company in India actually reached out to us and said, boss, I really want to be part of this. He never, right? And joined us, right? So I think product was a big one, right? A lot of innovation in products. We are the first person to actually do double-blind placebo tests on Ayurvedic formulations. And we're publishing in global peer-reviewed journals like Nature, right? So, really cutting edge product was like a core kind of capability. I think the second moat we built, right, was around this entire assisted journey, right? That we're not just selling your product, we're gonna help you find the right product for you, and we're gonna handhold you till we give you the outcome you ask for, right? आपको जो भी करना है, we are there not only with product based चले गए. We will suggest the product and we will stand by a suggestion, right? All the way through to end to give you the outcome, right? I think third moat को छोड़ो. These two are the key things I would say. That from our end, we keep customers sticky, and once we get a customer on board, right? That's why we have customers who bought us 2-3 years ago, who continue to buy month on month, right? So that's, I think that end of the day, that's the biggest success metric for a brand. Are your customers sticking over a period of time? And if they do, then your growth will be compounding, right?
Awesome. Awesome. That's really great to know. So yeah, I will read out a few questions which we have gotten on the Q&A as well.
Sure.
First is about someone wanted to check about the government guidelines for requiring a prescription to sell Ayurveda products.
Sure. I read this. This came out yesterday. I read this. So it's on schedule E1, right? So those are just poisonous substances. So there's like some 10 substances in Ayurveda. It's not for all products, and only products that have those ingredients. So this is actually a very good guideline. Because Ayurveda also has some substances which can be, if taken in large quantities, harmful, right? So if your product contains those substances, you need a prescription. So if you just go online and search for Ayurveda Schedule E1, you'll get the list. So if your product contains those substances, it's about 10-12 of them. You need a prescription.
Okay. Got it.
Very technical question, I must say.
The second one is very generic. What are the main things we have to take care of when we launch our products online?
So I think main thing is that how much love are you going to give that product, right? Launching a product doesn't mean anything, right? आपने वो list कर दिया. But I think there needs to be a lot of clarity on how you want to sell this product, right? क्या strategy है इसको बेचने के लिए? who am I selling to, how am I selling, and it needs to be not just I'm selling it because it's a great good product or good value proposition. Which channel are you selling it? In that channel, what are you thinking about? How to optimize keywords, etc. So exactly a detailed strategy on how this product is going to sell, right? And then make a commitment. I'm going to invest X amount of product into NPD, right? And I'm going to, these are the metrics I'm going to test for. And if these metrics make sense, I'll keep on kind of investing more. So I think very, very solid kind of planning, expectation setting all around to everything from channel to metrics to blah, blah. So I'll give you an example, right? When we launch a product, we have a rating and review program, right? That we work with our super customers. So we have super users, who have bought us more than 10 times. And we send free kind of sampling to them for them to leave reviews. We have an entire process where we kind of test about 8-9 different metrics on different platforms. Everything from retention to conversion to ROAS, right? To see to CAC, right? To see how the product is working. And then once we have those, we have very clear guidelines as to what to do next and how to move forward. In the beginning, it was more just me sitting and looking at the numbers day in, day out. It wasn't as structured as it is today. But you need to be very obsessed with how consumers are reacting, what they're saying, take every comment to heart and really get to the bottom of it, talk to consumers. I think, yeah, covered this.
Okay. I'll skip one question. So the next question is very specific. So what social media channels give the best ROI for Kapiva in terms of customer acquisition?
So it's a difficult question to answer, and I'll tell you why. Because attribution, I think, itna clean nahi hai hamesha, right? So to be honest, I like Facebook. I like Facebook because you can deliver very quality content on Facebook, right? So we do a lot of education content, a lot of detailed, content, which we can kind of deliver very nicely on Facebook. Now, if I look at the direct ROAS of that campaign, it won't be fantastic, right? It'll be maybe like 1.5. But if I look at how much incremental sales I'm getting in those products, it seems to be significantly higher. So I think Facebook. I think if you're looking at pure measurable ROAS, probably Google.
Okay, got it. The next question is interesting. So, like, what metrics do you use for performance marketing initially, and what benchmarks do you keep to know that you are doing well?
Sure. So the mother metric is always CAC LTV, right? And benchmark is 1:4, 1 year LTV. So I think that's pretty straightforward. But yeah, on day one, you probably get CAC. We don't know what LTV is, right? So we look at things to measure. So there's a very high correlation between M1 retention and LTV, right? And then of course, AOV is the most sensitive thing to LTV, right? So I'm able to upsell, cross-sell other products to those products, right? So yeah, we track, I think CAC, LTV, M1 retention. I think these are pretty like standard.
Okay.
It's not really that different, right? I think more often than not, people don't track these things properly. आप ठीक से track करना शुरू कर दो, looking at them as often as possible. If you're brand new, you probably won't have a data infrastructure to be able to look at it live. But it's really not that difficult to kind of build it out on Excel, right? Don't do it every day, do it every month, but it'll still give you a lot of visibility as to क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए.
Okay. There is one question, someone who has just asked a follow-up question that could you explain the 1:4 ratio which you mentioned in the previous?
So on a CAC of let's say 600, you should healthy LTV is 2400, right? So your CAC to LTV ratio, your LTV, which is your one, so LTV is a long-term value. So what is the customer spending with you on average over a year, right? So the way to, I'm sure you guys can just look up LTV calculation in case it's something which is not clear. But a CAC to LTV should be 1:4. That's a healthy number. If you have a very, very high gross margin business, maybe 1:3 good enough.
Okay. Awesome. So the next question is around subscriptions. That what do you think about subscriptions, and do you plan to launch a subscription model anytime soon?
So we found that India may people don't like to subscribe. We actually have insane amount of subscriptions on Amazon, etc. Right? But honestly, rather than going down subscription, one way is that it's saying I'm asking the consumer, can you subscribe to me, right? What my point of view is, I subscribe to you, chalo, right? Aapne kharida hai, now I will follow up with you and ensure ki aapka outcome aaya hai, right? So in a way, it's the opposite of subscription, but serves the same purpose, and it's more of a front foot subscription where I'll put my money in my mouth. You don't have to pay me now. but I'll follow up with you, and I know that you will come back and buy because I'm giving you the outcome that you want, right? So we found subscription in India is difficult to sell, especially for new customers. What we do find is that our repeat customers who love our products, they come back and they end up buying pack of 2, pack of 3, pack of 4. I think that's the best subscription in India that you can want, right? So that works really well for us. So repeat customer AOV is significantly higher than new customer AOV.
Interesting. Awesome. So there is one detailed question. So hi Ameve, thanks for your insights. We are a 1-year brand and are doing well on Amazon, having 3 products as bestsellers. We did this largely organically with limited budgets. It's getting difficult to grow on our website though. Seeing a lot of burn, how would you look at solving this problem?
The unfortunate answer is that you need to burn for the website, right? The second you say this CAC LTV thought process, right? Almost never will you be able to make back your money in your first purchase, right? If you can do that, then that's unbelievable, right? And unfortunately, you are competing against people who have funding, right? So end of the day, it's a demand supply situation, right? So if you want to go out and say, ki, I want to do this at 1/3 the price somebody else, you're basically saying I'm going to outsmart Facebook and I'm going to outsmart Google, right? Which is going to be a very difficult thing to do. I think end of the day, you will have to have a CAC LTV mindset. I think 6-month break even, 4-month break even on CAC is good. I think very, very good, right? So initial burn to hoga, right? And because you have, the faster you grow, the more you acquire, the more you'll burn, right? So that's just the math, right? It's nothing I can do or anyone can do about it, right? So for example, if your acquisition is 80% of revenue, then on the 80% of revenue, you'll be burning, your burn will be higher. But what the beauty of market of D2C is, today for us, more than half of our D2C revenue is repeat, which has almost no cost of acquisition, right? So that is extremely profitable, right? So as you keep growing as an organization and repeat becomes a larger and larger part. So somebody who's very, very big, you know, like a Mamaearth or a Nykaa, they have 90% repeat on the website, right? Including app playing a big role. So then D2C becomes eventually quite profitable. Okay. That's the way to think about it. But yeah, unfortunate thing is ki you do need funding to make it work.
Crazy. There is another question which is a follow-up to the channel question. So what about other commerce channels like Instagram? Is your target audience there? And if yes, how do you capture them?
So Instagram, I don't know. We found Instagram to be very, very expensive, right? I think it works very well for beauty, right? Hardcore like fashion, like beauty and fashion. Even our skin and hair is more healthcare, right? So we are a healthcare brand. I think what we've done is without spending any money, build like a community of 100,000 or so on Instagram, right? Not very large, right? Smaller companies have much larger communities, but it's not a key thing for us, right? I think what works better for us is things like YouTube, where we can deliver video content and educational content, right? So yeah, Instagram is not really a big focus for us, but works really well for fashion, works really well for beauty. But I won't be able to comment exactly.
Okay, got it. Well, there is one question called marketplace or D2C, which has been more profitable for you?
The short run is obviously marketplace, right? In the long run, it should be D2C. But that's that's something like so honestly, I think even today, when I look at companies that are doing 1,000 crores, right? 1,500 crores, startups, they're still not being able to make a lot of profit out of D2C, right? To be fair, they're still growing fast. And what is driving that growth is D2C, right? So I think looking at it in isolation is a little bit difficult. Like I'm able to acquire 20, 30, 40,000 customers every month on D2C. Can't do that on marketplace, right? But a lot of those customers end up buying in marketplace eventually, right? So being able to do the math for just D2C, just marketplace is a little bit unfair. I think D2C allows you to grow a lot faster, right? You can acquire a lot more customers. And those customers might end up buying offline later, might end up buying on a marketplace later. But D2C as a standalone channel, to be fair, not seen any company where it's significantly EBITDA positive, even at scale. So yeah, not the exact black and white answer that you wanted probably, but yeah.
Great. There is one question about influencer marketing. So what do you think about investing in influencer marketing and how much budget should you allocate? should you go for macro influencer or micro? Do they actually grow conversions or engagement, or is it just about creating awareness? And can you give an example about what kind of influencer campaigns you started with and what you do now?
So to answer this question, I'll have to go like spend 1 week looking at your data and your customer for you, right? So I think you have to, it's a do it in a methodological way where you try like combination of what communication, what type of influencer, etc. Like different variables, test it out, see what works. Probably different things will work for different products, different things will work for different categories, right? So you'll have to actually test it out for yourself. For us, for skin, very different things work as opposed to for, let's say, weight or men's health or sugar, right? So everything has a very different kind of go-to-market and very different kind of learning. We've seen that influencer leads to revenue, right? I think there is a revenue. I think attribution from influencers is very complicated, right? So we build an internal model, very difficult to define what it is. But benchmarking, from what I've seen, it's somewhere around 1.5, 2 ROAS is good, right? Because it's also leading to awareness, right? So it's awareness plus kind of 1.5, 2 ROAS is not measurable. Link ROAS will be lower, but that is what your outcome would be potentially.
So the next question is generic, like how do you engage with customers in the post-purchase journey?
So multiple ways, right? I think the initial days was purely CRM, which is was purely SMS, WhatsApp. Today we have a large telehealth team or health coach team, sorry, not supposed to say tele, health coach team, right? Which are using a combination of actually WhatsApp and phone call and all of that to talk to consumers. So let's say today you buy a product, you'll get an adherence message or call after 7 days. He was, don't stop, because 7 is where people drop off most often, right? Band mat karo. It takes time to work. It's very important to keep continuing it, right? And then you'll get a feedback call of 30 days. Are you happy, not happy? What worked, what didn't work, right? And throughout that process, you'll be getting adherence reminders, lifestyle tips, diet tips, all of that, right? Today, it's not perfect through email, right? WhatsApp helps a lot, right? But we're also now integrating an app with it now. So that seems to be the most seamless.
Okay. The next question is about the choice of the platform. So what would you choose for D2C, Shopify or WooCommerce?
I have, like, it really depends. Yeah, like you have to kind of sit down, figure out. So, honestly, Shopify seems to win more often. Again, WooCommerce, at least if I had to take a very, very high level point of view. But really depends on what your requirements are, right? So WooCommerce seems to be better for content heavy stuff, right? But what we did was we actually wrote down that what we want, what are requirements, and we went and see, things that almost everybody will agree to do, right? So I'm sitting here and talking and giving you my learnings for the last, right, for free. So there's 20 people like me, and everyone I've learned loves to kind of talk and share, right? You feel good about it. So go. My recommend was go find a CTO, right? Someone who's experienced it in detail. That's what we did. We went and spoke to 3 CTOs. We told them this is what you want to build, right? What makes sense. So then they came and they spoke to us and they said, okay, these are the advantages of Shopify, the other advantage and disadvantage of Shopify, the other disadvantage, advantage of WooCommerce, and then we also looked at Magento, BigCommerce, all of that, right? So based on that, we kind of took a decision based on what our requirement was. But if I had to just say something, I'd say Shopify.
Awesome. So the next question is about budgeting. So how do you do the budgeting, like for all of these experiments, right? How do you I guess the question is about like how do you know that you have spent enough money so that the outcome of your experiment is meaningful, right? And how do you do budgeting when you are in the initial stages while doing those experiments on the product and the positioning and all of that?
So are you talking about particularly marketing budgets from that point of view?
What? I guess it is about overall budgeting, because at the initial stages, like how do you how do you decide how much money to allocate for at the different stages? Because you can't have like a perfect product and enough marketing spend for an entire experiment. So how do you know it
So,
is enough?
so what we did was start very niche and then grow from there, right? And almost every brand that you see out there had the same journey, right? So start with fixing a smaller problem, right? Today we have 5 categories. We started with one, and we started with 3 products, right? Uh, any brand you look at started with a very niche offering, figured that out, and then grew from there step by step by step. So obviously, like I think it depends on how much money you have. We didn't start with a lot of funding, right? We did our Series A couple of years after we kind of started. We had a bit of seed money we raised, but I think make the problem as sharp as possible, right? So, for example, rather than saying I want to be the biggest beauty brand, right? Be like, okay, I want to start with not beauty but maybe skin. Within skin, there's this very niche issue or these 2, 3 niche issues that I'm going to target and grow my business from. If you're bootstrapping, that's the only way to do it, right? Pick your battles very, very carefully, and then kind of win those, and then move on. The money you make from those, move on. But the world has become much less bootstrapped in the last 2, 3 years. When we were starting, everybody was bootstrapped, right? There was no question of raising money on day one. But I think that's changing now. So many angel networks also come up and things like that. So I think bootstrapping is great, commendable, but it does take time, right? And the advantage of raising a little bit of money, even from angels, etc., is that you get to experiment a little bit more, a little bit quickly, and you can move fast.
Got it. The next question is, what is the percentage of awareness and the conversion rate for a D2C brand?
Percentage of awareness, again, it depends on the like audience size, right? So I'm talking about online consumers.
It is hard to, this part is a bit hard to understand for me as well.
Correct. So I don't really know. Conversion on a D2C page really depends category to category. I hear fashion is much lower, whereas health is a little bit higher. Anywhere between, like, I think 3.5 plus is a decent number. I've seen people go up to 7, 8. Amazon is what 12, but that's probably the most high intent platform in the world, right? I think that's not a fair benchmark.
Awesome. So we have a last question, like here. So as a startup, how much should you spend on branding as a percentage of revenue?
So the first time we spent 1 rupee on branding was this year, actually a few years ago, right? So I think you can create a couple of 100 crores of revenue without spending 1 rupee on branding, right? So it depends, honestly, right? People have done it both ways. There's people who've kind of done a lot of top of the funnel awareness. So to be honest, the way I would answer this question, it depends on your product, right? If your product is something where you're taking market share, right? Then awareness is not such a big problem, right? So then it's more about getting people at the consideration stage, right? And if your value proposition is strong, you can build a lot of kind of revenue without doing any branding. If your product is a novel concept where you have to explain the concept or explain the thought process, like let's say a Zepto, right? Zepto is something where you have to explain the value proposition. So for them, brand marketing becomes very, very important, right? There's nothing else they can do. But let's say if it's selling a shampoo, right, or you're selling a hair oil, whatever that is. So then I would say that unless there's something very differentiating you need to explain, I would start off not doing brand marketing for a while. The good brands that I've seen, right, started brand marketing, I would say, and maybe if I had to take a revenue number, 50 crores. I think we were late, honestly. But I think, yeah, that's the number that I've seen good brands kind of do. But again, do it very minimally and very smartly, and very clear thought process of how many people I want to make aware, who's my TG, and how am I retargeting that TG, right? Because it's very easy to just spend a bunch of money on brand marketing and see nothing out of it. You have to be very smart and think it through in a lot of detail.
Awesome. I think we are almost out of time. So there is just one last question for you. So for all the D2C founders out there, right, what would be like the main piece of advice from your side for someone running a brand now in 2022?
That's tough. I think be very clear what your, let's say, moat is. Let's call it moat. That's what you mentioned, right? What is your reason to win? What is it that you're offering, right? I think what fiddles into that question is that what is your reason to be on D2C, right? If your reason to be is to sell a product, then the place you should be is Amazon. There's no need. Why would someone come to your website just to buy a product, right? So I think the reason to be for D2C in particular, I think is something very often that people don't see, people not thinking through. Yeah, I think instead of saying 5 things, I'll just stick to.
Great. Awesome. I think we have reached 7, and
Awesome.
thanks a lot, Ameve,
Thanks for
for
having me.
answering all the questions and sharing so many insights. It was absolutely great for me as well. I myself got to learn a lot. I'm thinking of starting a D2C brand now. No, but
hope I was helpful. Always happy to help. I hope it was helpful to everyone who attended. Absolutely.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everyone, for attending as well. And bye. Have a good day.